Hello, it's Yen. Welcome to my kitchen. I have Ethan here with me because he's eating avocados, so I have to keep an eye out on him. He usually gets pretty camera shy, but I apologize in advance if it gets a little messy or rowdy in here. Anyway, I wanted to share my recipe for a Korean dish that I've been really into lately, which is Budae Jigae. Translates into army stew. You can add different things in there like canned black beans, which I find a little weird, so I don't do that. So here's my version. Let's get cooking. Ethan, let's get cooking.
For part 1 of making the broth, we will need 1 medium-sized yellow or sweet onion, 3 cloves of garlic, 1 piece of ginger about 3 inches long, not too fat and not too skinny, 2 sheets of dried kelp, I found this at the Korean market, and a little bit more than 3/4 cup of dried anchovies, also found this at the Korean market. For the onion and the garlic, just cut off the ends and remove the skin. For the anchovies, just rinse it in some water. For the ginger, remove the skin and cut it into thinner slices. For the kelp, rinse it in some water. Now using a stock pot, bring 2.5 quarts of water to a boil, then add in your kelp, garlic, ginger, onion, and anchovies. Then cover the pot and let it slowly simmer for 30 minutes. You want the heat to be at or below what is shown right here. Now for part 2 of making the broth, we are going to add in 2.5 pounds of country style pork ribs, or just any type of pork that's suitable for making stew. But first we want to season it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and sprinkle a little bit of cornstarch or tapioca starch on it, and just mix it well and add it in. If you're running out of space, then make some room for the pork by taking out the onion. If you have enough room in your pot, then you can leave the onion, take it out at the same time you take out the pork later. Doesn't matter, either way works, no biggie. Now cover the pot again and let it slowly boil for 15 to 20 minutes or until the pork is just cooked. Now remove the pork, cut it into bite-sized pieces and set it aside for later. Remove and discard the kelp, anchovies, garlic, ginger, and the onion if you didn't remove the onion earlier. Now the onion will have quite some flavor to it, and some prefer to eat it, so if you like it, then keep it and set it aside for later. To make sure you get all the small pieces out, you can use a strainer to make things easier. Now add 4 very generous cups of kimchi that's been fermented longer than usual. And by generous, I mean this generous, 4 monstrous cups. We brought this jar from the store and let it age 6 or 7 days before we opened it. This is very important. Do not use fresh kimchi. Also add 3/4 cups of kimchi juice, half a teaspoon of salt, and let it slowly boil for 10 minutes. You might need to turn the heat up a little higher since the kimchi is cold. Now we're going to make the seasoning paste, which consists of 8 cloves of garlic, about 2 tablespoons minced, 2 tablespoons of hot pepper paste or gochujang, 1.5 tablespoons of hot pepper flakes or gochujang, 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, half a teaspoon of sugar, half a tablespoon of rice cooking wine, half a teaspoon of juice from a piece of ginger, and 2 tablespoons of the hot kimchi broth. Mix all the ingredients in a small or medium bowl and set it aside. For the next part, in a large stock pot with some oil, saute 1 andouille sausage slice, 1 can of spam slice for 2 minutes on medium-high. We're not stir-frying anything, but simply browning them so they add another dimension of flavor. Add the pork to the saute. Add the seasoning paste and saute for an additional 30 to 60 seconds. You'll want to get every bit of that good stuff, so add more of the hot kimchi paste to the bowl if you need to. Now add all the kimchi and the kimchi broth into the large stock pot with the meat. Add 1 bunch of green onion. I find whole green onion overwhelming and too powerful when you get a bite of it. So to tone it down, cut each individual green onion in half lengthwise and cut it in half widthwise so it looks like this. And just give it a little stir. Look at how far we've come along with the broth. The 2.5 quarts of plain water that we started with is now so full of flavor. We're gonna add a few more things and then we're ready to dig in. Obviously, this is a big ass pot of food that feeds at least 7 hungry monsters. So I'm transferring a portion for 2 of us in a smaller pot to add the remaining ingredients. I am adding tofu. You can go with soft or medium firm tofu. I am also adding Korean glass noodles, which are made from yam starch. Just follow the cooking instructions on the package, but make sure you run it through a cold water bath so you stop the cooking process. Not shown here, but another item that I usually like to add, Korean rice cakes or tteok. You gotta make sure you get a little bit of everything. So we have some sausage, some spam, some tofu, some kimchi, some green onion, some noodles, and some of the broth, and some pork. I made something else behind the scenes which you didn't see. Let me show you what I made. I made Budae Jigae, or Korean marinated pork. If you're interested in this dish, I will be sharing my recipe in the next video or 2. Now back to the Budae Jigae. Not sure how you feel about leftovers, but this is one of those kind of foods that gets more flavorful the next day. Budae Jigae was created during the Korean War when people were basically gathering any food the US military had that they can make a stew out of. That's why I mentioned earlier that you can add canned beans. You can also add ramen noodles, sprouts, mushroom, hot dog. This is my version of the recipe with ingredients that I think really complement this dish.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that recipe. If you did, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out my other channel, which I will link right here. And you can check out my previous video on this channel right here. Don't forget to subscribe and we will see you next time. Is that yummy? Are you enjoying your avocado? Yummy. Is it that yummy? Is it that good? Can I have one? Can you share one with me?